In 1947, the Doomsday Clock was first introduced to the world by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists as a way to express the threat that nuclear weapons pose to humanity's survival. The formula they developed was simple. The closer the minute hand to midnight, the more immediate the threat of ultimate doom. Now, due to the threat of climate change and the increasing threat of nuclear weapons, the group has decided to move the clock to 5 minutes to midnight. For the first time in the history of the Doomsday Clock, climate change is considered to be one of the key forces leading towards humanity's destruction. In support of the conclusions of the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, the board of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists has added climate change to its agenda as a result of a broad consensus among the world's scientists that global warming is now 90% attributable to human activities. This is a 24% increase from the last report issued by the panel in 2001. The IPCC report concluded that carbon emissions over the last 50 years are largely to blame for the increased threat to the environment. They warn that if governments do not take immediate steps to reduce global carbon emissions, the eventual results will be catastrophic. The report says that 10 of the hottest years on record have been since 1994, and that overall temperatures rose 0.7 degrees in the 20th century. The report predicts that temperatures will rise between 3.2 and 7.8 Fahrenheit in the 21st century. While this may not seem like a lot, a few degrees rise in global temperatures will raise sea levels and increase the size of the world's deserts in a process known as desertification. A recent article in the New York Times highlighted that ice is melting so fast in Greenland that entirely new islands are being discovered along its coast that were previously submerged under a sheet of ice. In total, Greenland is covered by 630,000 cubic miles of ice, enough water to raise global sea levels by 23 feet. In the New York Times article, Carl Egid Bogold, a professor of snow and ice physics at the University Center of Svalbard, said that Greenland could be losing more than 80 cubic miles of ice per year. He added to this by saying, that corresponds to 3 times the volume of all the glaciers in the Alps. These new reports on the increased threat of global warming come amid accusations that the Bush administration has been actively suppressing scientific research concerning global warming. NASA climatologist Drew Shindle testified the following at a congressional hearing on the subject.
The NASA press corps and I wrote a press release on these findings to convey them to the broader public. While previous to this time, press releases had been issued rapidly and with reservations from headquarters that basically were made to improve clarity and style, this release was repeatedly delayed, altered, and eventually watered down. When we at GIS inquired of those higher up the NASA chain what was going on, we were told in the fall of 2000 releases were being delayed because 2 political appointees and the White House were now reviewing all climate-related press releases.
Shindle also testified the following later in the hearing.
Also during the fall of 2004, NASA headquarters insisted that a NASA press officer be present to monitor all interviews, either in person or on the phone, a measure most of us felt was unbefitting of a democratic society. As with the interference with press releases, the restrictions were not imposed on other parts of NASA, such as space science, or even other areas of Earth science outside of climate research.
The Bush administration has consistently resisted pressure to implement laws or sign international agreements that would substantially reduce carbon emissions. The Kyoto Protocol is currently the most important international agreement designed to curb global emissions of greenhouse gases, but the U.S. government has refused to sign it, even though it is responsible for the largest share of carbon dioxide emissions in the world. Many fear that without U.S. participation, the protocol is doomed to failure. Ironically, more than 2/3 of American voters actually support the Kyoto Protocol.